it is important to make different types of literature available. Now, I have at least one of the other titles, and I think I had some of the others. Now, some of these books are published by multiple companies, but particularly in a world that has denied 1 Corinthians 11, 4 through 7, and doesn't understand the more gentle approaches to the same issue, this forms a very important text. Now, was it originally in Arabic? Because we have al-muqarna bainal hijaba wal safur. I'm not entirely certain about the vowels, but let's go on. The first point that we should probably start with is the fact that hijab and similar words are not some specific style for some specific culture, not some specific material either, as much as, for example, when a person goes on pilgrimage, the women wear simple and plain clothes. What we allow for ourselves and others should be based entirely on what has been revealed to be allowed, what has been inspired through the prophets to humanity to be allowed. Now, we are in the international age, so we refer to Al-Quran about this regard of what we're to have. The truest support is the encouraging of what is right and the discouraging of what is wrong, and helping each other in this. And I've mentioned before Sabilil Mu'minin, the way of the believers, in Surah 4, ayat 115. And previously mentioned here, 971, which gives some examples of what to encourage, and 302. But it's very important for us not to conflict with what is right. Now, we may have our own inclinations. Society may have their thing, but we're not to be psychopaths or sociopaths. So that's not the thing. And our own experiences is, again, our own experience. But, we're regarding something greater than that. And sometimes the evidence isn't there that we know of. And that happens with a lot of stuff. But only religion is where people are like, oh, well, you have to wait until you've proven or known of the facts themselves. Now, the mention of women being reserved in their houses, well, to some extent, too, the men, when they go about their business and traveling and stuff, except for their visits to the places of worship or to get teachings, they're supposed to hurry home and make things home-focused too. Modesty is a sign to not annoy people with requests of immorality. And some of this is not, painting yourself up like, and research, to give a reason for faith that you can find elsewhere, indicates that immodest people make even the modest people unsafe. Even if it's not their behavior. So as far as stirring up desires and things that become unresolved and may result in things, even where they show that the modest people are being attacked more, which does occur in some places, it's the presence of the immodesty that leads to that. So, like away from the beaches and the pools in the same neighborhoods and stuff, you will find lower rates during those times of year of the same stuff, the same circumstances, because people are covered more. So there's less being directly stirred up, and there's not that frustration of unresolved desires. And obviously there's issues with cancers and all sorts of other stuff by the overexposure or the tight revealing clothing. So women in particular covering basically the same areas as the men, but those areas extend over a larger percent of their body. That's the whole thing. And Islam does not have the threats of shaving and beating for not doing it. Again, a woman may be kept out if she's not covered, just like a man from a place of worship or a prayer meeting if it's not a dedicated place of worship. But, we're not doing it with threats and insults. And vices, whether immodesty in dress or behavior, leads to other vices or is associated with other vices, and it exposes people to ways that are otherwise. And people think, well, you're not engaging in the worst of things and the things that no one can deny that these are wrong. So things kind of just seep in. And as a man, I notice that people will make presumptions and ask you about things that you show no outward signs of other than the fact that you're modest. And so in modern society, even Muslim majority countries, you can see all sorts of stuff in the marketplaces and the beaches and stuff too. Now, better than the outer modesty is the inner modesty, but they go together. And as far as the evil forces that are not incarnate in physical bodies, because they exist on a different plane, right? They're witnessing from their unseen place too, so it's not like you're showing for them, but like some of these people, they do their rituals and they get all naked and all that sorts of stuff, and it's for these things, but really it's the reaction of what might happen if they're witnessed that this is being stirred about, because these beings already see you. They're just getting you to violate things. So now it's less direct. It's through music, and it's not done as part of some mythology of not wearing as much. Yeah, there's a lot of cultures that ended up with mythology towards not dressing it, not covering up properly, and to the point where they developed a diet and a lifestyle where it just felt comfortable. Now, sometimes people get desensitized, but, there's that aspect as well. And now it's been totally secularized. People are spending more to cover less. And that was one of the points in the first place, is we can make more money by getting people to cover less if we design clothes to people be half naked on the beach, and therefore they will spend more for that. And then they realize that gets them attention, and maybe they feel wanted, not long-term wanted, not overall wanted, like if they didn't, they might figure out. Just like we shouldn't do things just because they're the fashion. We, scent offerings are one thing, but like, for example, women aren't to go out of the home with their perfumes. deodorizers and whatever, sure, but in general, the things that would be considered as perfumes, they should avoid that. And so, what they clean up with and stuff, they should use types without scent if they're going away from the home, because again, it gets people to smell the other smells, and it's as something of enticement. Now, why men? Well, men are allowed to marry more than one woman if, with permission of they have to get consent of the wives. It's not that they go about and say, "Yeah, I'm marrying you. I could carry you." And I've heard people talk in such a way that you got that impression. Like I saw a guy stand up and say and make the declaration, "I intend to marry such and such woman," and it's like, dude, but he did. He did say that, and I think things kind of moved forward, but I think that was just part of his home culture, and he felt like it didn't matter what groups were there, that's what he was going to do. But but men too, because of the work they do, might want to cover up some of the smells, either emitting from them or what they've been exposed to in their job site. And there's definitely the preference of men doing these jobs, both in terms of physical ability and to give an extra dignity to the women, right? And people who see things as a little rebellion, well, the little rebellions add up. And you want to preserve your honor and your dignity. If you say that you probably will not be disrespected, that you probably will not be violated, well, what about those who are? So you don't want to form a group that increases the amount of victimhood. Now, you do blame people for how they disrespect people through action, through words, or more intimate actions. You do want to hold them fully accountable. That's not what we're doing, but everybody's responsible for their side of what they're doing. And we're not victim blaming. We're blaming people only for what they've done, And you hear on the news about people, oh, they're being punished for, no, they weren't being punished for being a victim. They were part of the gang, and the investigation exposed some of the crime that they committed. Sometimes the person who attacked them or whatever was even executed for their crimes, or the people, they were executed for their crimes, but the person who was the victim was prosecuted for something entirely different. There, as far as I know, and I've looked into some of these cases that you hear about, there is no such thing as a penalty for being sexually assaulted in any Muslim majority country or any other country, as far as I know. There's no penalty for being sexually assaulted. Whether you're pre-adolescent or afterwards, there's no penalty for being a victim. That's just twisted reporting. And men too. Men aren't just something for display either. In the Islamic vision, men and women get paid according to their work, and per se cost related to their employment. That should be considered. Like, if you think about it, overtime and the types of labor that men perform, and asking for wage increases and that sort of stuff, men actually don't do as well as women overall. Now, tips, yeah, that process is demeaning. The idea that women will wear clothing that's tighter than underwear is supposed to be in order to get more tips, or they'll flirt with customers. That's like, see, this is part of the problem. And the joints of women are different, so certain jobs just naturally are performed better by men, and women do some jobs better themselves. So, but it's the Islamic vision itself. People are again paid equal for equal work. A sufur, the uncoveredness, it implies a availability. And as far as physically, more than just the environment, it increases the vulnerability. Like, there's some things out there about some animals like dolphins and stuff, and they will go after the immodest people more. Now, if you say that the hands, the face, and the feet are not covered for the pilgrimage, I guess, people can draw a covering of whatever gender in the middle of a sandstorm to protect their face or something. But, that doesn't mean that, they shouldn't be allowed that option otherwise. So if people want to take it to that level, if they want to stay in their homes, except for as need requires them to go elsewhere, society should allow women to do that. Now, to give their testimony, showing their face, that's part of it. And society should go back to the point where the companies are paying enough, so if a man works, he can take care of his family, and the woman can process what the man brings home. But, this idea that they're just forced to take part in everything, that's not liberation. Liberation to work 9 to 5 for a company and do what they're going to do at home. And as far as men who want something permanent, or something more lasting, or something that has nothing to do with access to the body of the woman, the uncovering is, again, not a necessary part of it. A man can tell if a woman's obese or too skinny, and if there's some sort of birthmark or scar or something that may, or some issue that may form something. Well, either he can tell by if the woman limps or something, or he should be told by the family that here's this issue before they get married. So you don't have to see people naked to marry them. So that sort of excuse. And it turns out that people who live together are less likely to be married. People, if they live together first, and they're more likely to get divorced. It's not quite as far if they've just fornicated here and there. But then again, that reduces the odds, and it can reduce the odds the whole life for things staying together. And, there's other things like that to consider too. And if somebody's totally modest and, oh, no one sees me like that, no one's seen me like that. And some of it, and like some of the stuff, they're like, okay, well, this would be a level of modesty, okay, between women, but don't post it online and just say this is a women's only thing, because that phrase alone is going to get some people to go view that shouldn't view. Or some people, because definitely exposure to homosexual or bisexual or whatever they want to call themselves is about the same as in regards to the other gender, so don't, or worse, right? So don't consider, you might want to consider that, especially in today's society, how they're programming people to be like that. And insisting on your principles helps the wider community against their enemies. And, if it makes people paranoid to do something against you, okay, that could work too. But then again, you do want to alleviate some of that. You're just a normal person, but you're modest, right? Or maybe normal is not the right word, because there's a lot of things that are normal that aren't good for a person, aren't good for society. But you know what I mean? Just living an everyday life, except you have some God consciousness.